Welcome to After Dark Chronicles, where the real stories come out. When the sun goes down, the truth comes up. Tonight's story. A woman agreed to be her best friend's maid of honor. She planned the perfect wedding. She handled every detail. She smiled through months of Bridezilla behavior, and then 3 days before the wedding, she discovered something that would destroy everything. Her best friend had been sleeping with her husband for over a year. Her best friend was pregnant, and the baby might not be the groom's. So she made a decision. She wasn't going to cancel the wedding. She was going to let it happen. And then at the altar, in front of 200 guests, she was going to expose everything. This is the story of the most calculated, public, devastating revenge in wedding history. This is her story. This story comes from Reddit, posted by a 32-year-old woman, who learned that sometimes the person standing next to you in matching dresses is the one holding the knife behind your back. Here's what she wrote. My name is Jessica. I'm 32 years old. I've been best friends with Lauren since college. We were inseparable, roommates freshman year, bridesmaids in each other's fantasy wedding plans. We shared everything, secrets, clothes, apartments after graduation. She was the sister I never had. When I met my husband Marcus 5 years ago, Lauren was the first person I told. She helped me pick out the dress for our first date. She was my maid of honor at my wedding 3 years ago. She gave the most beautiful speech about friendship and finding your person. I cried. Everyone cried. It was perfect. Marcus and I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but good. We both worked demanding jobs. Me in marketing, him in finance. We didn't have kids yet, but we were trying. 2 years of trying, actually. It was starting to strain things. The disappointment every month. The doctor appointments. The tests. The stress. We started going to therapy to deal with it. Our therapist said it was normal for couples struggling with infertility to grow distant. We were working on it. During this time, Lauren was always there for me. Girls' nights, when I needed to vent, wine and terrible reality TV. She'd tell me everything would work out, that Marcus and I were strong, that we'd get through this. Then about 18 months ago, Lauren met someone. His name was David, successful real estate developer, handsome, charming, rich. Lauren was obsessed. She'd known him for 3 weeks when she told me she thought he was the one. I was skeptical but supportive. They moved fast, really fast. Engaged after 6 months. Wedding planned for a year after that. Lauren asked me to be her maid of honor. Of course I said yes. I was thrilled for her. Finally she'd found her person. The wedding planning started immediately, and Lauren transformed into a monster. I'm not exaggerating. She became the textbook definition of a bridezilla. Every decision had to be perfect. Every detail scrutinized. She changed the wedding colors 3 times, fired 2 wedding planners, made bridesmaids buy 4 different dresses before settling on one. She created a wedding website with a 40-page expectations document for the bridal party. Arrival times, outfit requirements, social media rules. It was insane, but I sucked it up, because that's what best friends do, right? I planned her bachelorette party. Vegas, 5 days. She complained the entire time. The hotel wasn't nice enough. The restaurants I picked weren't trendy enough. The stripper I hired wasn't hot enough. She threw a drink at me during the last dinner because I wasn't paying enough attention to her. I should have walked away then, but I didn't. Because in my mind, this was temporary insanity. Once the wedding was over, I'd get my best friend back. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in June. Beautiful outdoor venue. 200 guests, $50,000 budget, mostly paid for by David's family. Lauren had been planning this day for a year. Every detail was perfect, and I'd been involved in every single one. Dress fittings, vendor meetings, flower selections. I'd given up weekends, vacation days, and honestly a chunk of my sanity to make sure Lauren got her dream wedding. 3 days before the wedding, everything fell apart. It was a Wednesday. I was at work when I got a text from Marcus. Can you come home? We need to talk. My stomach dropped. Those are never good words. I told my boss I had a family emergency and drove home. Marcus was sitting on the couch when I got there. He looked terrible. Pale, red eyes, like he'd been crying. I said, what's wrong? Is someone dead? He said, sit down. I sat. He took a deep breath and said, I need to tell you something. And you're gonna hate me, but I can't keep lying to you. My heart was pounding. I said, what did you do? He said I've been having an affair. The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. I said, with who? He looked at the floor. He said, with Lauren. Everything stopped. I said, what? He said, Lauren and I have been sleeping together for the past 14 months. It started last year at her engagement party. We were both drunk. It was a mistake. But then it kept happening. I tried to stop. I really did. But I couldn't. I'm so sorry. 14 months. Over a year. While I was planning her wedding. While she was consoling me about my marriage struggles. While she was my maid of honor. My best friend. I stood up. I said, get out. He said, Jessica, please, let me explain. I said, get the fuck out of my house right now or I'm calling the police. He left. I collapsed on the floor and cried for 3 hours. Then I called Lauren. She answered on the second ring. Hey, what's up? I said. Marcus just told me everything. Silence. Then Jess, I can explain. I said, you've been fucking my husband for over a year. She said, it's not like that. It just happened. We didn't mean for it to happen. I said, while I was planning your wedding, while you were pretending to be my best friend. She said, her voice getting defensive. You and Marcus were having problems. You said so yourself. You were growing apart. I was just there for him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was justifying it. Blaming me. I said, does David know? She said, no. And you're not going to tell him. I said, the fuck I'm not. She said, Jessica, if you tell him, you'll ruin my life. The wedding is in 3 days. Please, I'm begging you. Just let me have this. After the wedding, I'll end things with Marcus, I promise. But please don't ruin my wedding. I said, you ruined my marriage, and you want me to protect your wedding. She said, I made a mistake, but I love David. I want to marry him. Please, Jess, for our friendship. I hung up. I sat there shaking with rage. Part of me wanted to call David immediately, to text every wedding guest, to destroy her. But then I thought about it, really thought about it, and I realized something. If I told David now, he'd cancel the wedding. Lauren would play the victim. She'd say I was jealous, that I was lying because I was angry about my own failing marriage. She'd twist the narrative. People might even believe her, and Marcus and Lauren would probably end up together, bonded by the drama. No. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. I needed to make sure everyone knew the truth, and I needed to make it hurt. So I made a plan. I called Lauren back. She answered immediately. Jess, I said, my voice calm. I'm not going to tell David. She exhaled with relief. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much. I promise. After the wedding, I interrupted. I have conditions. She said, anything. I said, first you're paying me back for every dollar I spent on this wedding. Bachelorette party, dress, gifts, everything. That's $4,000. She said, done. I said, second, after the wedding, you're telling David yourself, and you're never contacting me or Marcus again. She said, I will, I promise. Thank you, Jess. You're saving my life. I hung up and started executing my plan. First, I needed proof. I went through Marcus's phone while he was at work the next day. He'd left it at home, probably too distraught to remember it. I found everything. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts. I screenshotted all of it. Hundreds of messages. Explicit photos. Messages about how they loved each other, how they wished they could be together, how I was so oblivious and wouldn't notice anyway. Reading those messages broke me all over again. But I kept going. I needed everything. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. A text from Lauren to Marcus from 2 months ago. I'm late. Like really late. I took a test. It's positive. Marcus's response. Are you sure? Lauren, yes. I'm pregnant. Marcus, is it mine or David's? Lauren, I don't know. We need to figure this out. Marcus, does David know? Lauren, no. And he's not going to. I'm going to tell him it's his. We'll get married, and he'll never know. Lauren was pregnant, and she didn't know if the father was her fiancé or my husband. And she was planning to trick David into raising a baby that might not be his. This was so much worse than I thought. I screenshotted everything. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I hacked into Lauren's email. I'd known her password for years. We used to share streaming accounts. She'd never changed it. I went through her emails, found more evidence, hotel bookings, secret credit card statements, And then I found the pregnancy test results she'd forwarded to herself. Positive. Dated 2 months ago. I had everything I needed. The wedding was 2 days away. I showed up to the rehearsal dinner like nothing was wrong. Smiled, hugged Lauren, pretended everything was fine. She pulled me aside and said, "Thank you for not saying anything. You're a real friend." I smiled and said, "Of course. What are best friends for?" That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I was about to do. Was it too far? Was I being cruel? Then I remembered the text messages, the photos, 14 months of lies. Lauren consoling me about my marriage while she was destroying it. The pregnancy she was hiding. No, this wasn't too far. This was justice. The day of the wedding arrived. It was perfect. Sunny, 75 degrees. The venue looked like something out of a magazine. White roses everywhere, string lights, a massive tent for the reception. 200 guests started arriving. I got ready with the other bridesmaids. Put on the dress Lauren had made us buy. Did my hair and makeup, smiled for photos. Lauren looked beautiful. Her dress was stunning. $10,000, custom made. She kept saying, "This is the best day of my life." I kept thinking, not for long. The ceremony was set to start at 4 p.m. Guests took their seats. The music started. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle. Then it was Lauren's turn. She walked down the aisle on her father's arm, beaming. David stood at the altar, looking at her like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. It was sickening. The officiant began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." I stood next to Lauren, holding her bouquet. My heart was racing. I'd planned this moment carefully. I'd practiced what I was going to say, but now that it was happening, I felt sick. The officiant said, "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." This was it. Dead silence. Everyone waited for the ceremony to continue. I raised my hand. The officiant looked confused. "Yes?" I said loudly. "I have something to say." Lauren's head whipped around. "Jessica, what are you doing?" I said. "I'm speaking," like the officiant asked. David looked confused. The guests started whispering. Lauren hissed, "Stop, right now." I ignored her. I turned to face the guests. I said, "I apologize for interrupting. But before this wedding continues, there's something everyone needs to know. Lauren has been having an affair with my husband Marcus for the past 14 months. Gasps. Lauren screamed, "You fucking bitch." David said, "What?" I pulled out my phone. I said, "I have proof. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts, 14 months of lies while she pretended to be my best friend and planned this wedding." I held up my phone, showing a text message thread. "And there's more. Lauren is pregnant, and she doesn't know if the baby is David's or Marcus's." The crowd erupted. People were shouting. Lauren's mother fainted. David stared at Lauren, his face white. "Is this true?" Lauren was crying, mascara running down her face. "David, I can explain. She's lying. She's jealous because her marriage is falling apart. She's trying to ruin our day." I said, "I'm not lying, and I can prove it." I pulled out printed copies of text messages, photos, and email receipts. I handed them to David. He read them, his hands shaking. Lauren reached for him. "David, please, listen to me." He stepped back. "Don't touch me." Lauren turned on me. "You planned this. You knew for days, and you let me get to the altar just to humiliate me." I said, "You humiliated me for over a year. Every time you fucked my husband while pretending to be my friend. Every time you asked me to help with your wedding while carrying a baby that might be his. You humiliated yourself." David dropped the papers. He looked at Lauren. "Is the baby mine?" She was sobbing. "I don't know." He turned and walked away. Just walked down the aisle and out of the venue. His groomsmen followed him. Lauren collapsed. Her bridesmaids rushed to her. Her mother, who'd regained consciousness, started screaming at me. "How dare you ruin my daughter's wedding?" I said. "Your daughter ruined my marriage. Ask her about the affair. Ask her about the pregnancy. Ask her about the lies." I walked off the altar, through the shocked crowd, and out of the venue. I got in my car and drove home. My phone exploded with messages. Angry messages from Lauren's family. Supportive messages from mutual friends who'd seen the proof. Shocked messages from people who couldn't believe what just happened. I didn't respond to any of them. I went home, changed out of the bridesmaid dress and poured myself a drink. Then I called a divorce lawyer. Marcus had been texting me non-stop, begging me to talk to him, begging for forgiveness. I blocked his number. I didn't owe him anything. Not anymore. That night, I got a text from David. "Can we talk?" I said yes. We met the next day at a coffee shop. He looked like hell. He said I need to know everything. So I told him the affair, the timeline, the messages, the pregnancy, everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." I said, "Neither did I." He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Divorce Marcus. Move on. Find someone who isn't a lying piece of shit." He laughed bitterly. "Same." He said, "For what it's worth, what you did took guts. I know everyone's going to call you dramatic, say you should have told me privately. But you gave me the truth when it mattered most, before I legally tied myself to her. Thank you." I said, "You deserve to know." He said, "So did you. I'm sorry I didn't see it." We sat in silence for a minute. Then he said, "She called me last night, begging me to take her back. Said the baby is definitely mine. Said you manipulated the evidence." I said, "Did you believe her?" He said, "No. I'm getting a paternity test done as soon as the baby's born. But honestly, even if it is mine, I don't want anything to do with her." Over the next few weeks, my life became a media circus. The story went viral. Someone had recorded the altar confrontation on their phone and posted it online. Millions of views, articles written about it, opinions everywhere. Some people praised me, called me brave, said Lauren deserved it. Others condemned me, said I was cruel, that I should have handled it privately, that I ruined an innocent wedding. I didn't care. I'd done what I needed to do. Marcus kept trying to reach me through mutual friends. I ignored all of it. My divorce lawyer served him papers 2 weeks after the wedding. He didn't contest. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Clean break. He got nothing. Lauren tried to reach out once. A long email about how she was sorry, how she'd made mistakes, how she hoped we could eventually talk about it. I deleted it without responding. She'd burned that bridge to ashes. There was nothing left to talk about. 6 months after the wedding that never was, I heard through the grapevine that Lauren had the baby, a girl. David requested a paternity test. The results came back. He was the father, but he still wanted nothing to do with Lauren. He set up a custody agreement and child support, but he made it clear they would never be together. Lauren was a single mother at 33, with no partner, no husband, and a reputation in tatters. As for me, I'm doing better than I ever thought I would. I moved to a new apartment, got a promotion at work, started therapy to process everything, and about a year after the divorce, I started dating again. I'm seeing someone now. His name is Alex. He's kind, honest, the complete opposite of Marcus. We're taking things slow, but I'm happy, actually happy. People still ask me if I regret what I did at the altar, if I think it was too extreme. My answer is always the same. No, not even a little. Lauren made her choices. She chose to sleep with my husband. She chose to lie to me for over a year. She chose to get pregnant and hide who the father might be. She chose to keep up the charade right up until her wedding day. I simply made sure the truth came out before she could trap an innocent man in a marriage built on lies. Some people call what I did revenge. I call it justice. Lauren wanted her perfect wedding day. She got it, right up until the moment she didn't. And that's exactly what she deserved. But the story doesn't end at the altar, because what I did that day set off a chain reaction that would destroy Lauren's life in ways I never could have predicted. And honestly, I didn't feel bad about any of it. In the weeks following the wedding disaster, Lauren's life imploded spectacularly. The video of the altar confrontation didn't just go viral locally, it went international. Millions of views across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, entertainment websites picked it up. Maid of Honor exposes bride's affair at the altar was trending for 3 days straight. Lauren's face was everywhere, her name was everywhere, and everyone had an opinion. The comments were brutal. Thousands of people calling her every name imaginable: homewrecker, narcissist, sociopath. Her Instagram, which had been public and full of wedding prep content, was flooded with hate. She made it private, but screenshots of her posts were already circulating. People found her LinkedIn, her Facebook, her family's social media. The internet did what the internet does best. It destroyed her. Lauren's job was one of the first casualties. She worked in public relations for a mid-sized firm. Her entire career was built on managing reputations and handling crises. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 3 days after the video went viral, her company released a statement. "We have parted ways with Lauren Mitchell, effective immediately. Her personal actions do not reflect the values of our organization." She was fired, publicly. Her career in PR was over. No company in that industry would touch her. She'd become the crisis she used to manage for others. Her professional reputation was destroyed overnight. Then there was her social circle. Lauren and I had shared most of our friends, college friends, work friends, couple friends from when I was married to Marcus. After the wedding, those friends had to choose sides. Most of them chose mine, not because I asked them to, but because the evidence was undeniable. I'd shown several of them the text messages, the photos, the timeline. They were disgusted. Group chats that Lauren had been part of for years suddenly went silent for her. Invitations to events dried up. People unfollowed her on social media. She went from having a perky social life to being essentially isolated within a month. Her family was another story. Lauren's mother, Patricia, had always been obsessed with appearances. The big wedding had been as much about Patricia's social status as it was about Lauren. Having it blow up in front of 200 people, with video evidence going viral, was Patricia's worst nightmare. I heard through mutual friends that Patricia blamed Lauren entirely. She told people that she'd raised her daughter better than this, and that Lauren had embarrassed the family. Lauren's relationship with her mother, which had always been complicated, basically disintegrated. Her father was more sympathetic, but still deeply disappointed. Her younger sister stopped speaking to her completely. Then there was David, the man she'd almost married, the father of her child. David wanted nothing to do with her romantically, but the pregnancy complicated everything. As Lauren's belly grew over those months, David's resentment seemed to grow with it. He hired a lawyer immediately after the paternity test confirmed he was the father. He wanted joint custody, but zero relationship with Lauren beyond co-parenting logistics. Their lawyers communicated. They didn't. I wasn't directly involved in any of this, but word travels. Our social circles overlapped, and people talked. David made it clear to everyone that he'd been betrayed just as much as I had, that he'd been planning to marry someone who was actively lying about the paternity of their child. People sympathized with him. They blamed Lauren. Around month 7 of Lauren's pregnancy, something interesting happened. Marcus reached out to me through a mutual friend. He wanted to meet, wanted to clear the air. I almost said no, but curiosity won out. We met at a neutral location, a park, public, safe. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes. He sat down across from me and said, "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did, trying to be a better person." I said nothing. He continued, "Lauren and I, it's over. It's been over since the wedding. She wanted me to leave you and be with her. I told her no, that what we did was wrong, that I needed to figure out my own life before I could be with anyone." I said, "Why are you telling me this?" He said, "Because I want you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. Not the affair, not the lies. Losing you. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away for something that was never real." I laughed. Actually laughed. I said, "You want me to feel sorry for you? You destroyed our marriage. You lied to me for over a year, and now you're sad because you have to face the consequences." He said, "No, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just telling you that I know what I lost, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I stood up. I said, "Good. I hope you do. I hope every time you try to sleep at night, you think about what you threw away. I hope every relationship you try to have fails because you'll always know you're capable of this level of betrayal. I hope you're miserable." I walked away. That was the last time I spoke to Marcus. I heard later that he'd moved to a different city. Started over. I didn't care. He was irrelevant to my life now. 2 months later, Lauren gave birth, a healthy baby girl. She named her Emma. David was at the hospital for the birth, but only to establish paternity and sign the birth certificate. He held his daughter for 10 minutes, set up a custody schedule through lawyers, and left. He didn't speak to Lauren beyond what was legally necessary. Lauren tried to paint herself as a struggling single mother on social media, posted photos of Emma with captions about choosing to be strong and overcoming adversity. But people weren't sympathetic. The comments were merciless. "Maybe don't sleep with your best friend's husband if you want sympathy. Actions have consequences. Your baby is beautiful. Too bad her mother is trash. Lauren eventually stopped posting, deleted her accounts, disappeared from social media entirely. She'd become a cautionary tale, a viral example of what happens when you betray the people closest to you. And honestly, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, nothing. She'd made her choices. These were the consequences. About 8 months after Emma was born, I got a call from David. We'd stayed in loose contact. Not friends, exactly, but bonded by shared trauma. He said, "I need to tell you something. Lauren reached out to me last week. She wants to get back together." I said, "You're joking." He said, "I wish I was." She sent me this long email about how she's changed, how becoming a mother made her realize what's important, how she wants to give Emma a stable family, how we could make it work if I just gave her another chance. I said, "What did you say?" He said, "I didn't respond. I'm blocking her number, but I wanted to warn you. She's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. She might try to reach out to you too." He was right. 3 days later, I got an email from Lauren. The subject line was, "I'm sorry." I almost deleted it without reading, but morbid curiosity won. The email was long, pages long. She wrote about how the past year had been the hardest of her life, how she'd lost everything: her job, her friends, her reputation, her relationship with her family, how she was struggling financially, how being a single mother was harder than she'd imagined, how she'd made terrible mistakes but she'd learned from them, how she hoped one day we could talk, maybe even reconcile our friendship, how she missed me, how she needed me. I read it twice, then I wrote a response, short and simple. "You made your choices, Lauren. You chose to sleep with my husband for over a year. You chose to lie to me every day. You chose to get pregnant and hide who the father might be. You chose to use me to plan your wedding while betraying me behind my back. These are the consequences of those choices. You don't get to ask for my friendship now that you've lost everything else. You don't get to use me as your support system after you destroyed my life. I don't forgive you. I don't feel sorry for you. And I never want to hear from you again. Block my email. Block my number. Forget I exist, because you're dead to me." I hit send. Then I blocked her email address. I felt lighter, like I'd closed a chapter I'd been carrying around. Lauren responded anyway, from a different email address. "You're heartless. You ruined my life at my wedding just to be vindictive. You could have told me privately. You chose to humiliate me publicly. You're just as bad as I am." I deleted it without responding, and that was it. I never heard from Lauren again. Over the next year, I heard updates through the grapevine. Lauren had moved back in with her parents because she couldn't afford rent. She was working a low-level administrative job, nothing like the PR career she'd had. She was struggling with postpartum depression. David had Emma every other week, and Lauren resented the hell out of him for being able to afford a nice apartment and a nanny while she could barely make ends meet. Some mutual acquaintances said I should feel bad, that I'd gone too far, that ruining her wedding was cruel. But here's the thing. I didn't ruin her wedding. She did. The moment she started sleeping with my husband, the moment she got pregnant and lied about the paternity, the moment she asked me to be her maid of honor while actively betraying me, I just made sure everyone knew the truth before she could trap David in a marriage built on lies. If that makes me the villain in some people's eyes, I can live with that. Meanwhile, my life got better. So much better. I got the promotion at work I'd been gunning for. I moved into a beautiful apartment downtown. I traveled, went to Italy, Greece, Thailand, places I'd always wanted to go but never had time for, when I was married to Marcus. And I met Alex. We'd been dating for over a year when he asked me to move in with him. I said yes. We got a place together, a loft with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view of the city. It felt like starting over, like building a new life from the ashes of the old one. Alex knew about everything: the affair, the wedding, the viral video. I'd told him early on because I didn't want secrets between us. He'd said, "You did what you had to do. Anyone who says otherwise wasn't in your shoes." That's when I knew he was different. He didn't judge me. He understood. 2 years after the wedding that never was, I ran into Lauren. It was completely random. A grocery store. I was picking up wine for a dinner party. I turned a corner, and there she was, standing in front of the baby food, a toddler in her cart. We locked eyes. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Lauren said, "Jessica, I said nothing. She said, "Can we talk? Just for a minute." I said no. She said, "Please. I just want to apologize. Really apologize. Not through email. Face to face." I sighed. "You have 1 minute." She took a breath. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I know I destroyed your life. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I was selfish and cruel, and I hurt you in ways I can never take back. I've spent 2 years living with the consequences of my actions, and I deserve all of it. But I needed you to hear me say it. I'm sorry." I looked at her, really looked at her. She looked older, tired. The spark she'd always had was gone. She looked defeated. I said, "Okay." She said, "Okay." I said, "I heard you. You're sorry. Now I'm going to finish my shopping and go home to my boyfriend and my life, and you're going to go home to yours, and we're never going to speak again." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Okay." I walked away. I didn't look back. When I got home, Alex asked if I was okay. I said I ran into Lauren. He said, "How was that?" I said, "Fine." She apologized. I accepted it. "But we're not friends. We'll never be friends. And I'm okay with that." He hugged me. Good. That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the revenge, the fallout, the rebuilding, and I realized something. I'd won. Not because Lauren's life was worse than mine, though it was, but because I'd taken control. I'd refused to be the silent victim. I'd refused to let her manipulate the narrative. I'd stood up at that altar and told the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it made people. And yeah, it was dramatic. It was public. It was brutal. But it was also necessary. Because if I'd told David privately, Lauren would have spun it. She would have played the victim. She might have convinced him to stay. She might have trapped him in a marriage where he'd always wonder if his child was really his. By exposing her publicly, I made sure everyone knew exactly who she was. There was no spinning it, no rewriting history. The truth was out there, recorded and viral, for anyone to see. Lauren couldn't pretend to be the victim. She couldn't gaslight David. She couldn't lie her way out of it. And that's why I don't regret it. Not for a second. Some people say revenge is never the answer, that it makes you just as bad as the person who wronged you. I disagree. Sometimes revenge is justice. Sometimes exposing the truth is the only way to protect innocent people from being hurt. David deserved to know who he was marrying before he signed legal documents tying himself to her forever. And if the only way to make sure he knew was to tell him at the altar, in front of everyone, then that's what had to happen. The fallout wasn't my responsibility. Lauren's destroyed reputation wasn't my fault. Her lost job, her broken family relationships, her financial struggles, her isolation, none of that was my doing. Those were all consequences of her own actions. I just made sure those actions had consequences. And honestly, I'd do it again. If I could go back to that moment, standing at the altar with 200 people watching, knowing what was about to happen, I wouldn't change a thing. Because that moment, as brutal and public as it was the moment I took my power back. That was the moment I stopped being the victim of someone else's betrayal and became the person who demanded accountability. That was the moment I chose myself. And that choice changed everything. So no, I don't regret exposing Lauren at the altar. I don't regret the viral video. I don't regret any of it. Because every moment of public humiliation she experienced was earned. Every friendship she lost was a consequence of her lies. Every professional door that closed was because of her own actions. I didn't ruin her life. She ruined it herself. I just made sure everyone was watching when it happened. And you know what? I sleep just fine at night. 3 years have passed since the wedding that never was. 3 years since I stood at that altar and detonated a bomb that destroyed Lauren's carefully constructed facade. 3 years since I chose revenge over silence. And in those 3 years I've learned more about human nature, about justice, and about myself than I did in the 32 years before. My life now is unrecognizable from what it was, in the best possible way. Alex and I got engaged 6 months ago. He proposed during a trip to Scotland. We were hiking through the Highlands, just the two of us, and endless green hills. He got down on one knee in the middle of nowhere and said, "I want to spend the rest of my life with someone who's brave enough to stand up for herself, someone who refuses to be anyone's victim. Will you marry me?" I said yes. We're planning a small wedding. 30 people, close friends and family only. No drama, no Bridezilla behavior, no maid of honor, who's secretly sleeping with my fiancé. Just a simple, honest celebration of two people who choose each other every day. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm planning a wedding again, but this time, everything is different. This time, I trust the person I'm marrying. This time, I know who my real friends are. This time, I'm not naive about loyalty, or friendship, or love. I've seen the worst of what people are capable of, and it's made me appreciate the good so much more. Work has been incredible. After the promotion I got 2 years ago, I was headhunted by a larger firm. Better salary, better benefits, more creative control. I took the job and never looked back. My team respects me. My boss values my input. I'm doing work I actually care about. For the first time in my career, I feel fulfilled. Not just successful, but genuinely happy with what I do every day. My social circle is smaller now, but deeper. After the wedding disaster, I lost some friends. People who thought I'd gone too far. People who valued maintaining social harmony over holding people accountable. Good riddance. The friends who stayed are the ones who saw the evidence, understood what I'd been through, and supported my decision to expose the truth. Those are the friends I want in my life. I also made new friends. People who didn't know me during my marriage to Marcus. People who met me after, when I was building my new life. They know my story. But it's not the defining thing about me to them. I'm not the woman who exposed her best friend at the wedding. I'm just Jessica, and that feels good. Therapy has been a game changer. I started going right after the divorce. At first it was to process the betrayal, the lies, the trauma of having two people I loved most in the world conspire against me for over a year. But over time, therapy became about more than that. It became about understanding patterns, why I'd ignored red flags with Marcus, why I'd tolerated Lauren's increasingly toxic behavior, why I'd been so afraid to make waves that I'd let people walk all over me. My therapist helped me see that I'd spent most of my life being a people pleaser, avoiding conflict, putting other people's needs before my own. The wedding confrontation wasn't just about Lauren and Marcus. It was about me finally deciding that my peace, my truth, my dignity mattered more than keeping everyone else comfortable. That realization changed everything. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I stopped feeling guilty for setting boundaries. I stopped tolerating disrespect from anyone, for any reason, and my life got so much better. Relationships became healthier. Work became more satisfying. I became more confident. All because I learned that demanding accountability isn't cruel. It's self-respect. About a year ago, something unexpected happened. I got a message on LinkedIn from someone named Rachel. The message said, "I don't know if you remember me, but I was at Lauren's wedding. I was her cousin. I just wanted to reach out and say thank you." I didn't remember her specifically, but I responded. I said thank you for what? She explained that she'd been in an abusive relationship at the time of the wedding. Her boyfriend was controlling, manipulative, gaslighting her constantly. She'd been thinking about leaving, but was terrified. Then she saw what happened at Lauren's wedding. She saw me stand up in front of 200 people and refuse to stay silent. She said it gave her courage. 3 months after the wedding, she left her boyfriend, got a restraining order, rebuilt her life, and she credited watching me expose Lauren as the catalyst that made her realize she didn't have to stay silent either. I was blown away. I'd never considered that my actions might inspire someone else. Rachel and I met for coffee. She told me her story, how her ex had isolated her from friends and family, how he'd convinced her she was crazy for questioning his behavior, how seeing me stand up and demand truth in such a public way made her realize she deserved better. She said, "You showed me that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary." We became friends, real friends. And every time I see her thriving now, in a healthy relationship with someone who respects her, I'm reminded that sometimes the right thing is also the hard thing. That sometimes breaking the silence is the only way forward. I heard through the grapevine that Lauren eventually moved to a different state, somewhere in the Midwest. She took Emma and started over where nobody knew her story, where she could escape the viral video and the ruined reputation. I don't know what she's doing now. I don't care. She's not part of my life and never will be again. David is doing well. He's engaged to someone new, a woman named Sophie, who, according to mutual friends, is kind and honest and nothing like Lauren. He sees Emma regularly, has a good co-parenting relationship with Lauren through third-party communication, and has built a life he's proud of. We ran into each other at a charity event a few months ago. He introduced me to Sophie. He said, "This is Jessica. She saved my life 3 years ago." Sophie smiled. "I've heard the story. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth." We chatted for a few minutes. It was pleasant, easy, no lingering trauma or awkwardness. We'd both moved on. We'd both built better lives. And we were both grateful that the truth had come out before either of us wasted more time on people who didn't deserve us. As for Marcus, I have no idea what he's doing. I've blocked him on everything. Mutual friends know not to mention him. He's a ghost, a cautionary tale, a chapter that's closed. Sometimes people ask me if I ever think about him, if I miss him, if I regret how things ended. The answer is no, not even a little. Because the Marcus I thought I was married to didn't exist. The real Marcus was a liar, a cheater, a coward who couldn't even own his mistakes without being forced into it. I don't miss him. I miss the illusion of him. But illusions aren't real. And I'm done wasting time on things that aren't real. A few months ago I gave a talk at a women's conference. The topic was standing up for yourself in a world that wants you silent. I told my story. The affair. The betrayal. The decision to expose it all at the altar. The viral video. The backlash. The rebuilding. The room was packed. 200 women listening as I explained why I made the choice I did. Why I refused to handle it privately. Why I didn't care that people thought I was dramatic or cruel. When I finished, the applause was deafening. Women stood up. Some were crying. Afterwards, dozens of them came up to me. They shared their stories. Betrayals they'd stayed silent about because they didn't want to make waves. Abuse they'd endured because they were afraid of being seen as difficult. Lies they'd swallowed because exposing the truth seemed too hard. And they thanked me for showing them that it's okay to demand the truth, that it's okay to make people uncomfortable, that protecting yourself isn't selfish, that revenge, when it's really just revealing the truth, isn't wrong. One woman said, "I've been carrying the secret of my husband's affair for 2 years, pretending everything is fine because I'm afraid of what people will think if I leave. You just gave me permission to stop pretending." She filed for divorce the next week. Another woman said, "My best friend stole money from me, and I've been too embarrassed to tell anyone. You showed me that their actions aren't my shame to carry." She confronted her friend and ended the relationship. Story after story. Women who'd been silenced by fear, by shame, by the pressure to keep the peace. Women who saw my story and realized they didn't have to be silent anymore. That's when I understood. What I did at the altar wasn't just about Lauren and Marcus and David and me. It was bigger than that. It was about refusing to let liars control the narrative. It was about demanding that actions have consequences. It was about showing that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop protecting people who hurt you. I'm writing a book now, a memoir about everything that happened. The betrayal, the revenge, the aftermath, the rebuilding. My publisher thinks it'll resonate with a lot of people. I hope it does. Not because I want fame or attention, but because I want other people who've been betrayed to know that they don't have to stay silent. They don't have to be polite. They don't have to protect their abuser's reputation. The working title is At the Altar, When Silence is Betrayal. It's not just my story. It's a guide for anyone who's ever been told to handle it quietly or not make a scene when they've been wronged. It's permission to make the scene, to demand the truth, to choose yourself. Alex read the first draft. He said this is going to help a lot of people. I hope he's right, because if my pain, my public humiliation, my messy revenge can help even one person find the courage to stop accepting mistreatment, then it was worth it. Every uncomfortable moment, every person who thought I went too far, all of it, worth it, worth it. I think about Lauren sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. I wonder if she's happy, if she's found peace, if she's learned anything from what happened. Then I realize I don't actually care. Her happiness isn't my responsibility. Her healing isn't my problem. I gave her 14 months of blind loyalty while she betrayed me. I gave her my time, my energy, my friendship while she destroyed my marriage. I don't owe her anything else. Not my forgiveness, not my sympathy, not my energy. She made her choices. She lives with them. That's not my burden to carry anymore. What I do carry is the knowledge that I stood up for myself when it mattered most, that I refused to be the silent victim, that I chose truth over comfort, that I demanded accountability even when it was messy and public and uncomfortable. And that choice, that single moment of refusing to stay quiet, changed the trajectory of my entire life. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm stronger, braver, less willing to accept bullshit from anyone. I trust my instincts. I believe in my worth. I know that I deserve people who are honest, loyal, and kind, and I refuse to settle for anything less. My wedding to Alex is in 3 months. Small ceremony. Intimate reception. Nothing like the spectacle that Lauren's wedding was supposed to be. We're writing our own vows. Mine include a promise to always tell the truth, even when it's hard, to never betray his trust, to choose him every day, intentionally and honestly, because I know now what betrayal looks like. I know how it destroys people. I know the ripple effects it creates, and I refuse to ever be the person who inflicts that pain on someone I love. I've been on the receiving end of that kind of betrayal, and it nearly broke me, but it didn't. Instead, it remade me into someone who refuses to accept less than I deserve, someone who demands honesty and loyalty and respect, someone who isn't afraid to walk away from anyone who can't give me those things. So no, I don't regret what I did at Lauren's wedding. I don't regret the public confrontation. I don't regret the viral video. I don't regret any of it, because that moment was the beginning of my real life. The life where I'm not a doormat, where I'm not a silent victim, where I'm not someone who prioritizes other people's comfort over my own truth. That moment at the altar, when I raised my hand and said I have something to say, was the moment I finally chose myself, and I've been choosing myself ever since. To anyone reading this who's been betrayed, who's been lied to, who's been told to stay quiet for the sake of keeping the peace, you don't have to. You can speak up. You can demand accountability. You can choose yourself. And yes, it might be messy. It might be uncomfortable. People might judge you. They might say you went too far. But at the end of the day, you'll know you stood up for yourself. You'll know you refused to let someone else's lies become your shame. You'll know you chose truth over comfort. And that's worth everything. Lauren taught me that not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. Marcus taught me that not everyone who says they love you actually does. And that wedding, that viral public disaster, taught me that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to burn down the lies and walk away from the ashes. I walked away. I rebuilt. I thrived. And I'm never looking back.